This episode is brought to you by Best Fiends. If you are like me and love solving puzzles, then you need to be playing the mobile puzzle game Best Fiends. I love this game so much because it challenges my brain, but it's also a lot of fun, and it doesn't stress me out like other puzzle games, which I really appreciate. It's also a great way for me to stay connected with my friends and family while remaining socially distant. I also love how I can see when I pass my friends, so I can let them know that I am beating them. I'm very competitive. I can't get enough of it, and it's the perfect break from the intensity of my true crime research. This 5-star rated mobile puzzle game has over 100 million downloads, thousands of fun levels, and tons of super cute characters to collect. They've created a whole world right on my phone. It's bright and colorful with great graphics, and there's a story all about these cute characters. There are also new in-game challenges and events every month, so the game always feels fresh. And I'm never bored. Also, the best part is you can play all you want. You don't even need Wi-Fi or any bandwidth at all. So join me, my friends and family, and millions of other Americans who are already playing this fun puzzle game. Download Best Fiends for free on the Apple App Store or Google Play today. That's friends without the R, Best Fiends.
The Oracle Network. Look deeper.
This is True Consequences, a true crime and mystery podcast with stories based in New Mexico in the American desert Southwest. I am so glad to be here on GetVokl with you tonight. Hope you all are doing well and staying safe and healthy, and enjoying some good time with your family and friends, socially distant, of course. Tonight is going to be a live episode, basically, which is something that I haven't really done yet. I'm excited to. It's a case that I've wanted to cover for quite a while, but I've been waiting for the right time, and I feel like now is the right time to start talking about this case. So this is the case of Sasha Krause. But before we go into that, I have a few announcements. So if you have not started listening to Dos Pequeños yet, I highly encourage you to do it, especially if you like paranormal stuff and if you like to laugh, because it is a good mix of completely terrifying and really silly humor at the same time. Myself and my co-ghost Alex work really well together. It's been a lot of fun. We only have 2 more episodes this season, and then there's a little bit of a break between that season ending and True Consequences coming back on season 3, which is going to be November 1st. There will also be a extra special anniversary episode because October 28th is the 1-year anniversary of True Consequences. So that's pretty exciting. So Dos Pequeños season will end in 2 weeks. And then True Consequences will be back on November 1st. Yeah, Tanya, time flies. 1 year came really fast, but I'm excited about what season 3 has in store. Just a couple of reminders. If you want to support True Consequences, go to patreon.com/True Consequences. You can support as little as, I believe, $2 a month, and every little bit helps to support the show and keep it going. I was talking about this earlier, but I'm going to bring it up again. The Barelas Podcasters Guild is going to launch in October, and I'm a part of that project. It's pretty exciting. We're going to be reaching out to the community, teaching classes to people who want a podcast, teaching them how to do it. And we're going to be leveraging our listenerships to offer some local advertisers for local businesses to help support them through these crazy times. And we're going to build a studio. We're actually working on that now. It's very exciting stuff. And we've already had quite a bit of interest from the community, people looking to start podcasts but not knowing where to start. And we're really hoping to provide some kind of positive service to the community of New Mexico and really start to grow this podcasting thing that's happening here. And there's a surprising amount of podcasts that are local already. And so if we can keep going, that would be really awesome and really fun. I'm excited to be a part of it. I'm excited to be co-founding it with my friends at What's Up ABQ Podcast, which incidentally, I was just on their show this week. Their episode dropped today. They interviewed me, and it was a lot of fun. So today we are discussing a terrible and heartbreaking case that had an entire state, my state, New Mexico, looking for a missing woman from the area of Farmington, New Mexico. This case is tragic. It has left the local Mennonite community of Farmington reeling in grief and disbelief. But let's just go ahead and jump in and look at what happened to one Mennonite woman from New Mexico, January of this year. So on the afternoon of February 21st, 2020, a camper was camping in an area between Sunset Crater Volcano National Monument and the Wupatki National Monument, which is north of Flagstaff, Arizona. The camper found the body of a young woman. She was lying face down in the woods. She was bound with duct tape. Her hands were tied behind her back with duct tape, and her underwear were missing. She was dressed in a plain gray dress that was described as homemade. She had a white jacket and a pair of hiking boots on. The local coroner and criminal investigative team were dispatched to the scene. The body was sent for an autopsy, which would later show that her cause of death was blunt force trauma to the head, as well as a single gunshot wound to the head. It would take some time before the body was identified, and there were so many questions to be answered. Like, how did she die? How did she end up in this state so close to a primitive campsite? Who was she? Where was she from? And most importantly, who did this? Who was responsible for this? So for those of you not from New Mexico, Farmington is in the Four Corners area of the state. And Four Corners is the only place in the U.S. where 4 states border each other. We have New Mexico, Arizona, Utah, and Colorado. They're all connected at that one spot. And Farmington is really close to that area. It's actually one of the larger cities in New Mexico, and the metro area of Farmington, which includes communities like Aztec, Bloomfield, and Farmington, has a population of about 130,000 people as of 2010. So, big city for New Mexico, not such a big city for other states. The city of Farmington sits at the junction of the San Juan and the Animas rivers, and the major industry in the county is the oil and gas industry. The area around Farmington is arid, with large sandstone bluffs and desert brush, as well as some beautiful river valleys. It starts to look a little bit more like Colorado than other parts of the state. But there's also still like a lot of desert area. So now let's talk about Sasha. On January 18th, 2020, 27-year-old Sasha Krause left her home near Farmington, New Mexico at around 8 p.m. She was headed to her church, which was right down the road from where she lived. And she was going to grab some materials that she needed because she was a Sunday school teacher. And she also was a pre-K teacher. And she had a pre-K class the next day. This was the last time that she was seen alive. Police were dispatched to the Lamp and Light publishers at 3 a.m. on January 19th, as Sasha had officially been reported missing at that time. And this would start a month-long search for her by her family and community. Search parties were formed, and the entire area surrounding the church was thoroughly searched by volunteers and first responders. They had ground teams, there were helicopters, there were people on horseback. There were so many people looking for her, and they just kept expanding further and further away from the church. This was not like her. She was not known to wander off, and she was very reliable, especially when it came to teaching. That was something that she loved to do. So there was no sign of Sasha, and a $50,000 reward was offered for any information that could lead to the return of her. And the reward consisted mostly of donations from the community. So Sasha was born in 1992 in Temple, Texas. Her family joined the Mennonite church when she was 11 years old. And shortly after that, Sasha started working towards becoming a member, and she dedicated her life to the service of God. Part of the requirements for the Mennonite church to join is you have to do some intense Bible study for several years, and you have to make a pretty intense commitment to the church and to the ministry. And that's something that she took very seriously. She spent 6 years teaching Sunday school at Grandview Gospel Fellowship, which is a Mennonite church in Grandview, Texas. And she had moved to Farmington just about 18 months before she disappeared. She was hired at the Lamp and Light publishers, where She worked in the literature ministry. She helped with translating a lot of their literature into Spanish because she was fluent in Spanish, and she was learning French. She was also known to go out of her way to help non-English speaking parishioners. So she would sit next to them during a service and translate the service for them in real time from English to Spanish. So she had a big heart. She cared about people. She wanted to help, and she just wanted to do what she thought was right from her religious background, and from her faith. Unfortunately, the coroner and the police were able to identify the body that they found fairly quickly. And indeed, it was Sasha Krause's body. Sasha would be the second body of a missing person from Farmington who was found deceased in Arizona, and specifically in the Coconino County in a year. Similar to Sasha, Craig Kavanagh went missing on July 4th. He lived in Farmington, and he was found deceased near Heber, Arizona on August 5th in the woods. There's no connection to that. It's just kind of a weird coincidence that two people from the same city went missing and both were found dead in the same county in another state. I want to talk a little bit about the Mennonite community. There is a small Mennonite community in the city of Farmington. And in fact, there are 2 Mennonite churches located in the area. Mennonites are peaceful, loving, and forgiving people. It is part of their belief system to be peaceful and forgiving. So it's built into their religion. And here's a quote from the U.S. Mennonite Church website. Quote, Mennonites are a branch of the Christian church with roots in the radical wing of the 16th century Protestant Reformation, part of the group known as Anabaptists, because they rebaptized adult believers. The Mennonites took their name from Menno Simons, a Dutch priest who converted to the Anabaptist faith and helped lead it to prominence in Holland by the mid-16th century. Modern-day Mennonites number about 2.2 million people worldwide, with churches in North and South America, Africa, Europe, and Asia. Mennonites are known for their emphasis on issues such as peace, justice, simplicity, community service, and mutual aid. Members of the Mennonite Church share a Mennonite or Anabaptist perspective on matters of faith. It's how we understand our commitment to following the way of Jesus Christ. And then these are like the tenets of the faith. Following Jesus in daily life, believing that it's possible to follow Jesus as Lord above nationalism, racism, or materialism. Believe that it's possible to follow Jesus as a peacemaker. We believe that we can practice the way of Jesus, reconciling love in human conflicts and warfare without having to strike out in fear to defend ourselves. And they believe that they can live a simple life in service of others as a witness to God's love for the world. So I just wanted to share that because I felt like it was really important to understand Sasha was very devout in her faith. Such a peaceful, loving soul, according to people who knew her. And also that was part of her faith, was to be peaceful and loving and forgiving. And for something like this to happen to her is pretty horrifying when you think about it. For it to happen to anybody is horrifying, but for somebody who's dedicated their lives to helping others, who goes out of their way to be selfless, it's just insane and senseless. Fortunately, the police were able to identify a suspect pretty quickly after they found Sasha's body and after they identified her. She did have DNA on her neck, male DNA. She also had DNA under her fingernails that belonged to a man. And of course, they had the bullet that she was shot with that could be tested. So I just wanted to point those things out. This case is really interesting in the way that they were able to figure out who did this. I haven't heard a lot of cases being solved this way, and I thought that it was really interesting to learn about. So I'm going to talk about some of that, but I'm going to go into first who this suspect was. Using digital forensics, police were quickly able to narrow down on one particular individual, and his name was Mark Gooch. Gooch was an airman at Luke Air Force Base outside of Phoenix. He was raised on a dairy farm in a Mennonite community in Texas. So if you remember, Sasha was also raised in a Mennonite community in Texas. There's been some speculation that they grew up together in the same community. He claims that he didn't like the lifestyle of the Mennonites. In fact, his brother described a disdain or grudge that Mark had against the faith. Mark never became a member of the church, mostly because it involved that lengthy process I was talking about of intense studying of the Bible, baptism, and then committing your life to Jesus. Mark claims that he felt like he and his family didn't belong to the community because his family converted to the faith, unlike others who were in the community that were raised in it. So he felt like an outsider. And he left his parents and everybody that he knew when he was old enough and vowed to live like other people, like everybody else. He wanted to be, quote, normal. And there are reports that, like I said, Mark knew Sasha, but I haven't been able to corroborate that, so I don't know if it's true or not. They use digital forensics, they figure out who he is, and they go and find him at Luke Air Force Base in Phoenix. He's being questioned. He's asked if he knew why he was there. His response was, "Oh, the only thing I can think of is maybe I was driving my motorcycle too fast." The detective informs him that she is investigating a homicide and asks if he is familiar with the case of Sasha Krause. He said, "I seen it on the news," and that's a direct quote. He was asked if he went to Farmington on the night that Sasha disappeared, and he claimed that he had time for a long drive. Also a direct quote. So he decided to drive to Flagstaff to the Arizona Snow Bowl, which is a ski resort. He drove to the Snow Bowl and he found that it was closed, so he decided to keep driving, and he drove on to Farmington, New Mexico. He then claimed that he heard of a Mennonite community there and wanted to go to a church service because he was missing the fellowship of the community. This is all in his interview. It's all recorded. And he described a church located near a mesa with the words lamp and light spelled into the hillside. He also claims that he didn't check to see when the services were, but instead decided to drive back to Phoenix. All right, so this is where it gets really interesting. So cell phone records showed that Mark was in the area of the church for about 2 hours. And then his cell phone showed that he was in the woods outside of Flagstaff after midnight. So if you remember in the beginning, we talked about the fact that Sasha's body was found near a campsite in the woods north of Flagstaff. He claims that he arrived on base at 2 a.m. However, video surveillance shows that his car didn't drive onto the base until 7 a.m. So that was one of many inconsistencies that made his story suspicious to detectives. Forensic investigators revealed that there was really only one probable connection to Sasha because of Gooch's phone. And this is where it's really fascinating. And I think it's mostly due to the remote nature of this area. His cell phone was the only other cell phone communicating with the same towers as Sasha's at the same exact time until her phone dropped off. So that's how they found him. That's how they figured out he was likely the one responsible for this, which is crazy to me. It's crazy that his cell phone and her cell phone were the only ones that hit those towers, number one. But number two, that they were able to just quickly identify who he was because of that. The FBI was involved as well because we're talking about interstate travel. So that immediately brings in the FBI. Through computer forensics, the police were able to dig deeper and they uncovered some messages from Mark's phone. And these messages were between Mark and his brothers. And they started to show this interesting pattern that Mark had been surveilling the Mennonite community in Farmington for quite a while. And here's a small sample of those messages. This is all Mark, by the way. Quote, same for some reason. Even this morning's surveillance was boring. A bunch of old people without much to live for. Clearly not the people we grew up with. Sad to say, another disappointment. It's hard to know what exactly he was looking for, but the thing that stood out to me was when he said clearly not the people we grew up with. So it almost sounds like he's trying to find somebody, and knowing that there's a potential that him and Sasha knew each other from before, seems likely that she was exactly who he was looking for as he's surveilling this community. And it gets worse. Trust me. It gets much worse. In another message that was found from Mark's brother Jacob, and Jacob was a state trooper in Virginia. He claimed that he gave a Mennonite a ticket and coughed on the driver. So, quote, he would spread corona to the wedding they were going to, LOL, end quote. And the responses from the brothers and the group chat indicated that they seemed pleased by this and even encouraged Jacob to continue this behavior. For example, Mark texted back, fuck yes, I hope you treated them like shit. So there's clearly some motive here, right? He's obviously angry at the Mennonite community. He feels ostracized. He feels like an outsider. And him and his brother seem to have some kind of vendetta against them. This is only what's been released by police. They haven't released all his text messages, but I'm pretty sure that there would probably be more just based on his behavior. The other thing that was shocking to me was learning that he had been surveilling the community for a while. Like, that's obviously he's premeditating this, right? Obviously he's thinking this through. Obviously he has some kind of vendetta against these people. And I feel like the state has a really good case against him at this point. So those strange messages are definitely suspicious. I mean, the questions like, why was he watching that community? Did his grudge against the church run deep enough for him to target them with violence? And then, like, listening to his police interview, he claims that he was just casually there looking for service times, right? But his own brother, claimed that he had so much anger towards the Mennonite community because he felt they mistreated them. And it's interesting that his own family highlighted that anger to detectives, even though he really didn't even share any of that information himself. That, to me, says that it must have been pretty extreme. It must have been pretty intense. For them to call it out on their own without being asked about it tells me that there was something there. So we have his cell phone pinging the same towers as Sasha's at the same time that she goes missing. We have these text messages that show that he's angry at this community and that he's surveilling them. Now we have his own family admitting that he has this hatred in his heart. Another interesting fact that was uncovered by detectives was that Gooch had his car detailed the day after Sasha was killed. So I'm just saying, like, red flag city, right? Like, everything happening here is a red flag. It's all stacking up against him. He also called a friend to hide a gun for him. It was a .22 caliber rifle. He asked his friend to hide his gun. Not suspicious at all. Totally suspicious. Then told his friend to call his brother to come and pick up the gun. So somehow the police were tipped off about this friend and about the gun situation. And this is pretty smart. I was impressed by this. They bought a decoy gun that is almost identical to the one that Mark had and replaced it. So they gave the friend the decoy. They took the actual gun, entered it into evidence, and they waited for Sam to show up to pick up the gun, and they arrested him for tampering with evidence, which I thought was really smart. They did that. So he was arrested. This is Sam. He claims that he was never asked to get rid of or destroy the weapon. Okay, but why did you fly to New Mexico to pick it up then? Like, what do? You're just going to come pick it up and then what? What's going to happen after that? Why couldn't somebody else get it that was in Arizona already? It just seems weird. Then the police started questioning Mark about his involvement with Sasha's disappearance. They asked him if he was, they straight up asked him if he was responsible for Sasha Krause's death. And his response was, no, ma'am. And then when he was asked if he abducted her, he also responded, no, ma'am. So he lied about the time that he went to base. He said 2 a.m. Video surveillance shows him there at 7 a.m. He tried to hide a gun and have his brother pick it up. He detailed his car the next day, just like leaving clues everywhere. It's crazy. Forensics came back and proved that the gun that Mark owned was in fact the gun that fired the bullet that contributed to the death of Sasha Krause. The bullet was recovered and was inspected by a firearms expert. They proved that that was the same gun. Another thing is the Lamp and Light compound had lots of video surveillance. And the night that Sasha went missing, Mark's vehicle can be seen in that video surveillance at the compound where she disappeared from. So a lot of evidence uncovered here. It became very clear that Mark was the main suspect in this case. And it's really important to note that he is considered innocent until he's proven guilty in the court of law. But having said that, it really seems like this evidence is stacking against him, and it's very compelling. It doesn't look good for him at all from the outside looking in. And with all the evidence that they had, the police decided to submit the case to the state prosecutor or the county prosecutor for charges. It almost feels to me like he made a rash decision to abduct her. Like, I don't feel like he thought that out all the way. And I'm not even sure that and this is my opinion and it's all speculation, but I'm not sure that he even intended to kill anybody, but it just seems like he kind of lost it to me because he was so careless about everything. Like, everything was so careless. But I also don't know that he expected them to use that level of digital forensics to catch him, but it doesn't seem like he thought this through. Like you're saying, Jackie, it seems like he just made a snap decision. He panicked and just got really careless. So he is innocent until proven guilty, but it looks awfully suspicious. It looks like he definitely could be responsible for this. And it'll be interesting to see how this plays out in court. He's arrested and the prosecutor charges him. We've got 4 counts here. Count 1, first-degree murder. Mark Daniel Gooch, on or between January 18th, 2020 and January 19th, 2020, intending or knowing that his conduct would cause death with premeditation did cause the death of Sasha Marie Krause in violation of all these codes and laws. Or in the alternative, Mark Daniel Gooch, on or between January 18th, 2020 and January 19th, 2020, acting either alone or with one or more persons committed or attempted to commit kidnapping, or in the course of and in furtherance of such offense, or immediate flight from such offense, Mark Daniel Gooch or another person did cause the death of Sasha Marie Krause in violation of, and there's a bunch of laws that are quoted there. I think that the police at some point thought maybe that Sam was involved in this, or maybe somebody else was involved in this, but they haven't been able to prove that yet. Count 3. Kidnapping. Mark Daniel Gooch, on or about February 21st, knowingly did restrain Sasha Marie Krause with the intent to inflict death, physical injury, or a sexual offense on her, or to otherwise aid in the commission of a felony, and then again a bunch of laws that are listed. And finally, count 4, Mark Daniel Gooch, on or about February 21st, without lawful authority, knowingly did control Sasha Marie Krause's head covering and her underwear, a value of less than $1,000, with the intent to deprive Sasha Marie Krause of such property in violation of all these things, which is a class 1 misdemeanor. Oh, that was the thing I forgot to mention. He stole her head covering, which is something that is pretty important to the Mennonite women. It was obviously a statement that he was making by stealing that, as well as her underwear. It's a terrible statement to make, and I think it speaks to his disdain for the Mennonite faith. It speaks to his state of mind and the motivation of him doing this. It's horrible. Tanya, I agree with you. You know, she seemed to live her life in love and didn't deserve this to happen to her in the name of hate. I agree with you. There's no indication on where the head covering was found, or at least they haven't released that information yet, but they did say that they knew he took it. I'm sure more of that information will be released. All right.
I followed this case really closely. I was kind of sort of on the fringes involved in it by, passing out flyers and things like that, trying to find her. There was some question after Mark was arrested to exactly who would be pressing charges. Do you know if it's going to be the state of Arizona, or will it be federal, or will it be could it be the military?
I don't know that they've identified that. I know that his last hearing was conducted by the state of Arizona against him. And I think that that's where it's going to remain, because there was some conversation about Arizona taking this because they had the death penalty and New Mexico doesn't.
Yeah. And I was also thinking that the military would definitely push for the death penalty, and so would the feds. So, any way he goes, he's kind of in a big world of hurt.
Yeah, well, I don't want to get ahead of myself here, but I have some information about the death penalty and about what's happening with his case in regards to that. But I can tell you that the most recent hearing was the state of Arizona against Mark Gooch.
Yeah, I was just curious about that.
So, yeah. It'll be interesting to see what happens. And who knows, maybe there still could be some, action on behalf of the military against him, because I know things are different when it comes to being in the military and committing crimes. So it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out. Do you think he did it?
I'm sure he did. I think it was it was still a crime of passion. He's not a practiced murderer. So,
right. Yeah, I think so too. I mean, it seems like it would be really hard for him to get out of this, just based on everything that's been laid out. And I'm surprised by how much information has been released by police and by prosecutors, because usually with a case like this, they hold a lot close to their vest, but they seem to be just like out in the open about almost all of it. I'm sure they're holding some stuff back, but I was surprised by how much information is out here.
Well, I think they have him dead to rights, so there's no point in holding a lot back. That he was more or less caught red-handed. It's just a thing. Yeah.
His lawyers seem to think that he has a strong defense. So it'll be interesting to see what they pull out when they go to trial, because, and maybe they're just talking big, but in the arraignment hearing, they got pretty high and mighty and they've had some pretty strong responses. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Alex says, my brother's in the Air Force. I'm going to ask him if he knows what the military will do in response. He's probably sleeping right now. Yeah, cool. Yeah, let me know. You can probably find me on Twitter or Facebook or something, and let me know. I'd be interested to know about that. All right, so let me get into the current status of the case, and then we'll go into some Q&A maybe. And Jackie, I'm just going to mute you for a second, because you'll have a little bit of background noise, and then I'll unmute you, or you can unmute yourself whenever I'm finished.
I can get out too. I'll come on if I have questions.
Okay, cool. His defense will be interesting. I wonder if it's some kind of mental illness or temporary insanity since he lost it. That could be where they're going, huh? Yeah, I bet you're right, Kaylin. I could see them going for a insanity plea just because of his intense anger towards the Mennonite faith. That would be probably the way that they need to go, because the evidence is so strong against him. At a hearing in May, Gooch pled not guilty, nobody's surprised, to the charges that were brought against him in court. His attorney argued that he was not a threat to society and that he should be released on bail, and that the state did not have enough evidence to hold him. However, the judge disagreed and denied the bail request. It'd be interesting to know if there were, because he did say he was mistreated by the Mennonites. It'd be interesting to know, but honestly, probably was not premeditated. It sounds like it was more impulsive. Could be, yeah, it's hard to know. His defense argued that it was a first offense that he had, and that he really didn't have a record, and so that they should consider that. The judge, like I said, just was like, nope, no bail, sorry. And because this was a first degree offense in Arizona, the case would qualify for the death penalty. If the state wanted to pursue the death penalty, they only had 60 days to submit that to the court. This is why the judge said that he was ineligible for bail, was because the prospect of the death penalty was on the table. And if he did get the death penalty, then he wouldn't be eligible for bail, basically, in Arizona. Just recently, the 60-day period passed, and the state did not pursue the death penalty, which now makes him eligible for bail. And the judge ruled that he would have a $2 million cash-only bail. And this is what the judge said during that trial. Quote, the court does not believe that if the defendant is released, the court does believe that if the defendant is released, that he poses a risk to other members of the community. In fact, if he in fact committed this offense. End quote. The prosecutor argued, the victims in this case do not want this defendant released for obvious reasons. He said, he killed their daughter, and they expressed that they would only feel safe if he remains in jail, which is like, yeah, he obviously has some hatred towards Mennonites. He obviously is capable of violence. What's to stop him from going back to Farmington and killing her family and killing her friends and killing other people in the community? The defense attorney argued that all of those fears could be quelled by creating some conditions of release that would prevent him from interacting with that community or from leaving the state or from leaving the county. I'm pretty sure that there are people who violate those conditions of release all the time, right? You can't expect them to just, maybe if he has an ankle monitor, okay, but we have people in New Mexico that violate their conditions of release all the time. So I don't know. I do know that $2 million bail, I mean, okay, that's a significant amount. He probably doesn't have it. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens. So he does have bail. He could be released. They have to have another hearing. September 28th, they're going to have another hearing to review conditions of release if he can make bail. I don't know what the Arizona laws are. So I'm hopeful that there will be justice for this sweet young woman who suffered needlessly and was taken from this world so brutally. She deserves justice, but so does her family and her community. And I just pray that she rests in peace. It's such a horrible, awful case. And he's already not eligible for the death penalty. So I think at this point, we're looking at probably life in prison. I don't know what that means in Arizona. In New Mexico, it's only 30 years, and you only have to serve 80% of that. So I am grateful because it does seem like Arizona does have more strict laws, less defendant-friendly laws than New Mexico does. So hopefully there will be some level of justice, and I'm really hoping that he doesn't get out. I'm hoping that he's not allowed to come out and cause more pain for people, because he seems to me like he is a threat to at least that community. It's just a sad case. It's terrible. So that's it. That's the terrible story of the disappearance and the death of Sasha Krause. Like I said, I hope she rests in peace, and I hope her family can get some justice. Anybody want to hop on and chat with me for the last 12 minutes or have any? Oh, of course, Jackie. I've wanted to cover this for a long time. It's such a sad case, and I feel so bad for her and her family. And I remember when she was missing, it was really shocking, I think. And a lot of news coverage talked about how the finding the body was very shocking for the Flagstaff area, because they're not used to that kind of crime happening. They feel it's a bunch of retirees, and they feel like they're generally pretty safe. So that was a shock. So Kayline, I will be releasing this on the podcast as a bonus episode. I don't know that I will cover it unless there is more information that comes out. So maybe I'll do an update episode on it, but I don't know that I can do another full episode. I mean, if there's more information, maybe I can. Yeah, she deserves justice. Her family deserves justice. I'll definitely be following the trial. So if you guys are following the trial as well, and you find out some stuff, send it to me. Of course, Tanya, I always try to take a compassionate lens. I hope I did her case justice, and I hope that her family wouldn't be upset about me covering it, because I know it's touchy, and I know that there's a lot of pain there. So I wanted to do right. He's not allowed to comment on the case, but the Air Force will likely prosecute if the outcome isn't what they think is just. Yeah, Alex, I was thinking that the family may have intervened to stop the death penalty. Jackie, you know what? I think you could be right about that, because knowing the faith and knowing that they're so forgiving and peaceful, that would make a lot of sense. Alex, so I was wondering if, I know that people who are in the service, they don't have the same rights as civilians. I'm wondering if there's a possibility that double jeopardy wouldn't apply when it comes to somebody who is in the service. So it would be interesting to see if they do take on the case and and go for something more severe. So my guess is they'll be watching to see what Arizona does.
I was just going to say, I won't put it in writing. My brother's like, no, don't be sketchy. Don't tell me when I'm telling you any of these things. Even if he gets like manslaughter or something and they give him like 5 years, 3 years, whatever, they'll court-martial him for something else because he's broken a lot of Air Force regulations. Stalking is one of them. And yeah, so he said that almost certainly they will bring him up on something if and when, even if it's after he served time, but if it's something, if they don't find for something that the Air Force thinks is appropriate, they'll more than likely continue to prosecute. So.
And their punishments could be much more severe than what would happen to a civilian. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I don't think he's going to get acquitted either, Jackie. I don't see that happening. There's so much evidence against him that we know about. Like, it makes me think that there has to be so much more that we don't know about because they have to be holding some of that back. I can't imagine them not holding some of that back for trial. It just doesn't make any sense that would happen. I don't know when the trial begins. My guess is probably going to be next year. If they're just doing the bail hearing and the release hearing the end of September, they're not going to go into the holidays. I also think that his attorneys are doing a lot of delay tactics because they keep asking for continuances on hearings to delay them. So they're probably trying to come up with some kind of defense that they can use, and that's why they're buying more time. There has to be more they're holding back. Kayline, I agree. I've never known a criminal trial like this to release all of their evidence to public information. Absolutely, Jackie. I'll let you know if I hear. In fact, I'll probably just be sharing stuff on my social media as I find out. Thank you, everybody, for listening tonight. I appreciate all of you. I'm excited to be recording season 3 of True Consequences. I'm ready to be back in that mode. I've had a nice little fun vacation with Dos Pequeños, and I've been enjoying that. I've been enjoying the lightheartedness of it, but I am ready to get back into sharing some more of these stories and giving people voices here in New Mexico. Again, if you know anybody who is seeking justice in New Mexico and they want to share their story, please send them my way. I am looking for interviews still for season 3. I've been pretty unsuccessful. I think coronavirus is holding people back from doing that. But I am doing virtual interviews. So there is some corona safe interviews happening if anybody wants to do it. They do have to be in New Mexico, and the crime needs to be in New Mexico because that's what my show is about. But again, if you know anybody, please send them my way. I want to thank all of my listeners and thank all of my supporters here on GetVokl and on social media, and let you guys know that I just appreciate you so much. You make this so amazing to do, and I couldn't do it without you. So with that, I'm going to say stay safe, New Mexico, and socially distance. We've got some work to do on that. And also, take care, everybody. Good night. Thank you.
Thanks again for listening to True Consequences. Follow us on social media, on Instagram and Facebook at True Consequences Pod, and on Twitter at TrueConsPod. True Consequences is hosted, written, and produced by me, your host, Eric Carter-Landin. Thanks for listening, and stay safe, New Mexico.